I saw it in the white space first. The number looked smaller. A clean gap where breath should be. Steam curved off the stainless kettle and fogged the little kitchen window by the sink. The clock over the stove ticked like a careful shoe on tile. My phone lit my palm. My thumb hovered, then pressed. The banking app opened with the same soft chime it always had. The main page showed my checking balance and 3 small tiles below it. Bills, transfers, alerts. I touched transfers. The list scrolled. There it was. Yesterday, 4:12 p.m., outgoing to Mara L., external beneficiary. 8 digits of a reference code with a dash in the middle. Ref 7Q41329. I tapped it, and the detail page slid left. Date, time, amount, $3,000. Notes. First draw, household. The last 4 digits of my account blinked in the corner like a faint caution light. 31. The recipient showed the last 4 of her account too. 4472. My hands wanted to shake. I put both flat on the counter and felt the grain of the wood through the thin varnish. The floor vent hummed. Heat rose past my ankles. Outside, a bus sighed and moved on. My breath went in, slow. Came out, slower. Mara, I said to the empty room. My son's wife. The one who prefers plans that exist in the air. She loves mood boards. She loves starting. She loves hurry dressed up as momentum. Household, I read again. It was a broad word that could hold anything. The kettle clicked off. I didn't make tea. I set the phone on the counter, screen up, and pressed my right palm over it as if it could feel my hand's weight and settle down. I looked again at the line. It glowed, patient, factual. External beneficiary added 6 days ago. Device verified. I tapped the tiny information icon. A help note popped up. An external beneficiary is a saved payee at another institution. Future transfers may move faster. I turned the phone over so the glass faced the counter. The hum of the refrigerator deepened and then softened again. A bird hit the gutter and skittered across. I stood still until my heart stopped knocking. I lifted the phone and took a screenshot of the transfer detail. I drew a square around REF 7Q41329 with my finger. I blurred everything except the last 4 digits. I saved it. I took a second screenshot of the line that said, external beneficiary added 6 days ago. I saved that too. I said one sentence out loud to hear how it sounded in the air. I am finished being easy to move. The words felt right in my mouth. I let them sit between the clock ticks. I opened my notes app and wrote a list. Not feelings, steps, call the bank, pause external transfers, appointment at branch, private desk, remove the saved beneficiary, close and reissue account, new card, pin at kiosk, file a case ID, fraud alert at one bureau. I looked at the list and added one more line beneath it. No shouting. Paper wins. I set the phone on speaker and tapped the number on the back of my debit card. Thank you for calling North Landing, the recorded voice said. For card questions, press 1. For transfers, press 2. I pressed 2. The hold music was a piano loop, easy and repetitive. I stood in the warm rectangle of sun that had found the floor by the table and watched dust move like a soft storm. A woman answered. This is Rowan in Transfers. How can I help you today? Good morning, I said. My name is Ruth. I'm calling about an outgoing transfer yesterday to an external beneficiary. The reference code is 7Q41329. I did not approve that transfer. I need to disable external transfers until I can come in. I can help, she said. Give me a moment to pull up your profile. Her typing sounded like rain on plastic. I see an external beneficiary added 6 days ago. Name shows as Mara L. You're correct on the reference. May I ask, is Mara an authorized user? No, I said. She is my son's wife. She is not on my account. I'm sorry you're dealing with that, Rowan said in a steady voice. I can place a temporary block on all external transfers from your profile. We call it a freeze on outbound external. It will stop anything from leaving until you tell us to lift it. I can also put a speak to client only note at the top of your account. Please do both, I said. And I'd like to come into the branch today for a full review. I'll set the block now, she said. I'm typing the note on your profile so it's visible on first page. It will read, speak to client only. No third-party approvals. Verify voice. Thank you, I said. A little of the pressure inside my chest let go. Not all. Enough to breathe without counting. Our local branch has a slot at 11:40 a.m. with a banker, she said. Name is Luis Moreno. He's good. I'll send the appointment to your email. Anything else I can do? Yes, I said. Can you send me a confirmation that the block is in place? An email is fine. Done, she said. It's on its way. I refreshed my inbox. A new message landed. Subject: outbound external transfers. Temporary block placed. The body had a timestamp and a short line, placed by Rowan S. per client request. Case note: add speak to client only to profile. I tapped the little flag to mark it. Thank you, I said again. I'll see Luis at 11:40. After the call, the kitchen was still just my kitchen. The kettle sat warm. The clock ticked. The stainless bowl with clementines held 3 left. I put one in my pocket. I put the screenshots and the email print screen into a folder on my phone called Bank, November. Then I pulled a small tin from the cabinet above the fridge. It used to hold cookies. Now it held little pieces of my life. Inside were old bus schedules, folded to the weeks when winter ice made me late, and I learned where the wind hit hardest on the transfer bench. A plastic punch card from a factory where the clock was the loudest sound at shift start. The cardboard slip from my first wrist brace when I learned that pain has a way of teaching you form. A small paper with the phone number of an HR woman who once fixed a paycheck error because I brought her a neat list and a calm tone. I held the punch card. I remembered the way the metal turnstile would click one full, stubborn circle only when you pushed straight, not sideways. I had learned that on a day when I was 19 and hungry. I had learned a lot on days when I was 19 and hungry. I am finished being easy to move, I said again. The sentence wasn't for anyone else. It was a small brace for my own spine. I took down my binder from the top shelf, white with a green spine and a sticker on the front that said home in my own thin letters. I opened to the last tab, the blank one I had never used. I slipped a fresh sheet protector into it. Then I printed what I had: the email about the block, the appointment confirmation, and my 2 masked screenshots with the reference code. The printer chirped and warmed. I slid the papers into the protector while they were still a little warm. On a small index card, I typed and then printed a 3x5 with a clean font. Please seat me at a private desk. Add confirm speak to client only at top of profile. Remove external beneficiary, Mara L. Close and reopen checking with new number. Issue debit card and change PIN at kiosk. Print all confirmations. Begin fraud abuse intake. Provide case ID. I laminated the card with 2 pieces of clear tape back to back. It looked like something you would clip to a lanyard. I wasn't clipping it to anything. I would slide it across a counter. Before I left for the branch, I called my son. He didn't answer. I left a message with 12 words. I'm going to the bank. Call me after 3. We'll talk. I did not mention the transfer. A phone is a poor place for a fair conversation. The branch door whooshed open at 11:36. The sanitizer on the stand by the door smelled like grapes. An acrylic shield over the greeter's station reflected the ceiling lights like little white coins. A man in a blue shirt stood at the kiosk by the wall, poking the pin pad. It chirped. He frowned, re-entered numbers, and the machine dinged, satisfied. Welcome, the greeter said. Her name tag read RIA. Do you have an appointment? I do, I said. With Luis at 11:40. Right on time, she said. He's just finishing at a desk. You can wait here or at the chairs by the window. I'll stand, I said. Luis came out from a glass-paneled room at 11:41. He held a yellow paper folder and smiled like someone who likes rules because they keep the floor from moving. Ms. Ruth? That's me, I said. He led me to a desk with a low plant and a stack of clean paper squares in a little tray. An acrylic panel between us showed both our reflections faint and calm. He sat, I sat. I pulled the 3-5 card from my purse and slid it across the desk. He read it line by line. He didn't ask me to repeat myself. He clicked on his screen and turned it a few degrees so I could see the edges of the page without reading the sensitive parts. Profile note shows at the top, he said. The first line on his screen in bold said, Speak to client only. No third-party approvals. Verify voice. Good, I said. We'll start with removing the external beneficiary, he said. I'll need to verify you again for that, then I'll delete the saved profile. You'll see a confirmation screen. We did the voice check. He asked 2 simple questions. He clicked. A page came up with the name Mara L. and a white button that said, Remove Beneficiary. He clicked it. A small dialog box asked, Are you sure? He clicked yes. The page refreshed. The name was gone. He printed the confirmation. The printer beside his knee chirped and fed out a warm strip. He put it in front of me. External payee removal. Confirmation. Beneficiary, Mara L. removed by L. Moreno. Timestamp 11:49 a.m. I slid it into the left pocket of my folder. Next, he said, we'll migrate your checking account to a new number. We call it a close and reopen. It keeps your balance and history under your name, but gives you a fresh account ID. Let's do it, I said. It takes about 10 minutes, he said. You'll sign once, then we'll issue a new debit card number. We can generate a temporary card at the desk, and a permanent one will come in the mail. The PIN kiosk is right behind you when we finish. Good, I said. He clicked more screens. He printed a short slip with the new account's last 4 digits. 9926, he circled them. He put a line through the old last 4, 6631, and wrote closed beside it. He set both slips side by side and let me see them without letting me see any full numbers. You'll keep your online login, he said, but your checking ends in 99226 now. He handed me a plain envelope with a card-shaped bulge. This is your temporary debit card, he said. We'll activate at the end. He printed a second sheet called Account Migration Acknowledgement. I signed it with his pen and then wrote the same signature with my own black pen on the copy for my folder. We stapled that to the removal confirmation. I also want to file a fraud abuse intake, I said. Not criminal for now. Internal. I want a case ID and a note that an external beneficiary was added without my consent. He nodded. Understood. He opened a new page and typed as I spoke. Date of suspicious event? Yesterday, 4:12 p.m., I said. Reference code 7Q41329, he typed. Suspected actor? My son's wife, I said. Name as on the payee. Not added by me, he typed. Desired actions? Reversal if possible, I said. If not possible, document, monitor, protect, he typed. I'll generate a case ID, he said. You will receive a printout and an email. The printer chirped again. He tore the page and slid it to me. Case ID, NLAB2218. Category, Unauthorized Beneficiary Family Abuse Concern. Status, Open. I put it in my folder. I breathed. The breath felt like it moved into more of my chest this time. Let's step to the kiosk for your PIN, he said. We stood. My chair legs made a soft scrape. The PIN kiosk screen showed big numbers. I tapped 4 that meant something to me and nothing to anyone else. The keypad beeped. It asked me to enter again. It beeped again and then printed a small receipt. I took it. It said, PIN set, 12:08 p.m. The paper was warm. I liked the silly detail of that. Warm paper means you did something. Back at the desk, he clicked the temporary debit card active. He wrote activated and the time on the card mailer stub. He gave me the stub for my records. He printed one more sheet called CRM Profile Note Excerpt and highlighted the line at the top. Speak to client only. This is just to show you what I see, he said. Thank you, I said. Do you want to place a fraud alert with a credit bureau? He asked. It's optional. It tells lenders to take an extra step if someone tries to open something in your name. Yes, I said. TransUnion, please. I'm familiar with their portal. I can help you set it, he said. He typed, then turned his screen a little more and let me enter my answers. The page ended with a confirmation line and a small ID code. I wrote the code on a sticky he handed me. I would get an email too? The email arrived before I stood up. I forwarded it to myself with the subject line, Fraud Alert Confirmation, Save. I gathered the stack. It had shape and weight now. The beneficiary removal confirmation, the account reissue slip with new last 4, the debit card mailer stub, the PIN kiosk receipt, the fraud abuse case ID print, the profile note excerpt, and the appointment email on top. I slid the 3x5 instruction card under the paperclip that held them. I liked seeing it peeking out, as if it had done its small job and could rest. Anything else? Luis asked. Yes, I said. Please schedule me for a follow-up review in 2 weeks. Same time of day, he clicked. Done. Calendar invite sent. I stood. Luis, yes? "Thank you for being steady," I said. He nodded. "That's my job. And yours." At home, the house smelled faintly of citrus from the clementine in my coat pocket. I set the folder on the table and laid the pieces out. I took photos of each with my phone and saved them to Bank, November. I masked the numbers again and put tiny captions in the corner of each photo. External payee removal, new last four, PIN receipt, case ID, profile note. I printed one photo, the CRM note line that said, "Speak to client only." I taped it to the inside of my cabinet door where I keep tea so I would see it every morning without showing it to anyone else. At 2:10 p.m., a car door shut in front. My storm door rattled with the change in air. I looked through the glass. My son and Mara walked up the steps. He had his hands in his jacket pockets. She carried a brown leather tote and wore a scarf the color of mint ice cream. I opened the inner door, but left the storm door latched. "Afternoon," I said. "Mom," my son said. He looked tired. His mouth had a line I hadn't seen before. "You didn't answer." "I was at the bank," I said. Mara lifted her chin. "We needed to move fast," she said. "It was a simple household shift." I saw," I said. "It was for the renovation," she said. "The downstairs bath. We talked about that last month, remember? You said you wanted the safer tub." "I remember wanting a tub with a seat," I said. "I do not remember telling you to add yourself as an external beneficiary and move money." She looked at my son. He looked at the porch floor. "We meant to ask," he said. I held up a paper through the glass. 1 page. Title at the top, "Terms going forward." 12 short lines. No access, no keys. No banking conversations except at a desk with printed copies. No external beneficiaries. No passwords on paper. All requests in writing. Cooling off rule. 24 hours before any change. Speak to client, only note remains. No contractor contacted in my name without me present. No moving funds on household as a category. If you need money, ask. If I help, I will transfer myself. If you push, I will not. Mara's mouth set. "This is a lot," she said. "It's small," I said. "It fits on 1 page." My son looked at me through the glass. His eyes were red at the edges. "I shouldn't have let it happen," he said. "That's on me." "It is," I said. "I'm changing the locks this afternoon." Mara's laugh had no humor in it. "You're being dramatic," I shook my head. "I am being clear," my son swallowed. "Can we come in and talk?" "We can talk through the door for now," I said. "I've already removed the beneficiary. I've already closed and reopened the account. There's a block on external transfers. There's a case ID. If you want to make a plan for a tub, put it in writing. We'll sit at a desk and read it." Mara looked down at her scarf and smoothed it like it had offended her. "You act like we're out to hurt you," she said. "I act like money needs walls," I said. "So people can be good inside them." She took a step back. "We'll talk later," she said to my son. She walked down the steps fast. He stayed. "I'm sorry," he said. "I thought I was fixing something before you could worry about it." "Worry is not a hole to fill with my money," I said. "It's a signal to slow down." He nodded. "Do you need me to pay back the 3? "I need you to send back what you can this week," I said, "and not move anything again without me. I also need you to tell me if Mara added herself using your phone." He looked away. "That was an answer." "I'm not your enemy," I said. "I know," he said. "I've been acting like you're a gate." "I'm a person," I said. "A person who is finished being easy to move." He flinched a little at that, then nodded. "I'll send something by Friday." "Thank you," I said. "Text me when you do." He went down the steps slow. He put his hand on the rail that wobbled and then took it off. He would fix that rail one day, I thought, if he learned to ask. At 3:30, the locksmith's truck pulled up. The sides of it had neat blue letters with his name and license. He wore a gray cap with a frayed bill. "Afternoon," he said. "What are we swapping?" "Front and back door," I said. "New deadbolts and knobs." He showed me 3-cylinder models on the tailgate. I picked the midline one. Schubert 240C, the little tag read. He wrote it on the top of the invoice. He unscrewed the old brass knob and slid the new cylinder in with practiced hands. He vacuumed the drill dust from the mat. He showed me how the latch sounded when it set right. A small, crisp click, like a polite punctuation mark. He printed the invoice from a mobile printer in his truck. The paper smelled faintly of warm plastic. It read, "Cylinder, Schubert 240C, QDI 2, install, total 186. I signed. He handed me the old cylinders in a zip bag. Some people keep them, he said, like a trophy. I keep them to remember a decision, I said. I put the zip bag in the hall closet. I labeled it Old Locks, November. I put the invoice in my folder. The new deadbolt clicked when I turned it. The sound came from inside the door and inside my chest at the same time. Next, the door camera installer came. He wore a black shirt with a tiny logo near the shoulder. He held a card the size of a matchbox with a QR code and a pairing number. "We can put it on the door frame," he said. He kept his voice at the same volume whether I nodded or asked a question. I liked that. He scanned the QR on my phone. The app said pairing. He named my network. I shook my head. "I'm changing the router name," I said. "Please wait." I went to the hallway where the router lived on a little shelf behind a plant. I read the label on the side panel. I wrote down the serial and the default admin in my own notebook. Then I sat on the floor with my back to the wall and logged into the settings page. I renamed the network to something only I would recognize. I set a new password and wrote it on a small card. New network. Keep private. I slipped the card into the binder's front pocket. Back at the door, the installer finished the pairing. He showed me the first thumbnail still the camera had captured. My own face, a little too close, eyes soft, mouth set. I saved the still. He left the pairing sticker for my records. I taped it to the inside of the hall closet door under the old locks bag. By evening, the house felt like itself again, but with new edges. I sat at the table and wrote one more note. Safe deposit box for originals. I called the branch and asked about availability. They had a small one, chest height. I made an appointment for the next morning, before bed. I opened my laptop and searched for elder rights attorney near me. I picked a name that had a plain website and a photo that looked like a person who eats normal lunches. I sent a message. Family transfer without consent. Already updated bank. Seeking intake and boundary letter. Available tomorrow afternoon? I closed the laptop. I washed my face until the day felt like it slid off. I turned out the light. Morning smelled like toast. The bank's safe deposit hallway felt cooler than the lobby, like money prefers the shade. The attendant wrote my name on a log. I signed with my pen. She slid the thin drawer out and set it on a table. It looked like a bread pan with a lid. I placed a stack of originals inside. The beneficiary removal confirmation, the account migration slip with the new last four, the fraud abuse case print, and the CRM profile note excerpt. I kept copies at home. I closed the lid. The attendant turned a key. I turned mine. The lock made a heavy, certain sound. She stamped the access log. The stamp read, Safe Dep Access, 10:06 a.m. I took a photo of the log for my records. I put the key on a ring with a small blue tag and wrote Vault in block letters. When I got home, I hung it on the nail behind the calendar where the apricot jam recipe used to hang. At noon, my email pinged. The attorney's assistant wrote back, Ms. Ellery can see you at 3:15 today. Bring any documents you have. We can also initiate a fraud alert if you wish. I replied, 3:15 confirmed. I have case ID and bank receipts. Please prepare a one-page letter to the bank confirming safeguards. At 2:40, my son texted, Can we talk? I wrote, After 5, I have an appointment. He wrote back a dot and then nothing else. The attorney's office smelled faintly of coffee and paper. The waiting room had a dark rug and a plant that looked like it knew how to survive. Ms. Ellery shook my hand. She wore simple earrings and no watch. Tell me the short version, she said. External beneficiary added without my consent, I said. Transfer of $3,000 yesterday at 4:12. I called the bank. I froze outbound external. I removed the beneficiary. I closed and reopened the account with a new number. New debit card. New PIN. Fraud intake filed. Case ID NLAB22118. I placed a TransUnion fraud alert. I changed locks and the router. I installed a door camera. I have a follow-up with the bank in 2 weeks. I want a boundary letter for the bank and a simple memo for me about next steps. She smiled without showing teeth. You did my job, she said. I'll do the paperwork behind you, she typed while I handed her copies. She read each header and wrote a line in a short intake summary. We won't accuse unless we must, she said. We're documenting. We're protecting. That's the better way to start. She printed a draft letter on her letterhead. It was 1 paragraph and 3 lines. This confirms that Ms. Ruth has requested and received protective measures on her account. It referenced the case ID and the CRM note. It asked the bank to maintain speak to client only and to confirm in writing that no third-party requests would be honored. She also printed a 1-page action memo for me. If contact attempts continue, reply in writing only. Log date to time, decline unannounced assessments. Forward any threats to counsel. Keep all communications brief. Her assistant placed a retainer agreement on a clipboard. I read it. I signed with my pen. The assistant stamped the bottom with a faint blue rectangle and wrote, "Retainer paid $250 in neat print." I took a photo from my folder. "Do you want me to place fraud alerts with the other bureaus?" she asked. "Not today," I said. "1 is enough for now," she nodded. "You can add later. I'll email you a PDF of the bank letter and I'll mail a hard copy to the branch manager." "Thank you," I said. When I got home, I printed her email. The subject said, "Bank Safeguard Confirmation Letter, sent." I slid it into my binder behind the case ID. At 5:12, my son called. I let it go to voicemail and then listened. His voice had the wobble it gets when he's sorry. He said he shouldn't have let Mara add herself on his phone. He said he thought he could fix the bathroom fast and surprise me. He said he would send back half of the 3 this week and set a plan for the rest. He said he understood the locks and the router and the camera. He said he wanted to talk when I was ready. I wrote a short email instead of a text. Subject, terms going forward. I heard your message. Thank you for the apology. Here are the rules. No access, no keys. No banking unless we sit at a desk with copies. No external beneficiaries ever. If you want me to help with the bathroom, send a written plan and 2 quotes. We will review in person at the branch. We'll take a day before any decision. I want you to do better. I believe you can. Forgiveness is not access. I CC'd myself. I filed the sent message in a folder called Family, Boundaries. That night, I tightened a cabinet hinge that had been loose for months. The tiny screw bit caught and turned with a high tin squeak. The door closed with a tidy kiss instead of a clack. The basil on my sill put up 2 new leaves over the wet soil. Ordinary things kept doing their jobs. 2 days later, I taught a 15-minute account safety pop-up at the senior center. It wasn't planned. I had mentioned my week to the director in the hallway, and she said, "Will you share that on Thursday?" So I showed up with a handful of printed checklists I made at my kitchen table the night before. The title said, 3 things today. 1. Check your app for saved payees. 2. Ask the branch to add Speak to Client Only to your profile. 3. Print a 1-page instruction card for yourself. I stood by a corkboard where old flyers overlapped. Folding chairs scraped as people sat. I handed out the checklists. The dry erase marker squeaked as I wrote Ref 7Q41329 on the board as an example of how a reference looks. A woman in the second row raised her hand and said her grandson had moved money once, and she only found out when the balance felt strange. She said she thought she was the only one. "You're not," I said. "We can be kind and still be the wall that money needs." When it ended, I left the extra checklists on the table by the door with a cup of pens. People took them. One woman slipped 2 into her purse, like she might hand one to a friend. The week after that, I went back to the bank for my scheduled review. Luis printed my profile page and slid it to me under the acrylic. The top line still read, "Speak to Client Only." He showed me a new checkbox he had added, Unusual Payee Creation Alert. If someone tried to add a new external beneficiary, a note would ping my phone and his screen. We tested it with a dummy name. My phone buzzed and lit. He canceled it. The system wrote a tiny log line. Test alert generated. Canceled by banker. He printed that too. I slid it into the folder with the rest. "I appreciate the follow-through," I said. "So do I," he said. "It keeps us both from guessing." On the way out, I opened a safe deposit box again and placed the attorney's letter inside. I signed the log. 11:05 a.m. The attendant stamped the page. Safe Dep access, 11:05 a.m. I took a picture of the stamp and smiled at the small satisfaction of it. When I got home, I found an envelope on the mat. It held a small piece of paper from my son with a screenshot of a transfer back to me for $1,500. The memo line said, "First half." He had printed it and slid it under my door like a boy returning a borrowed book. I took a photo and filed the paper copy in Family, Boundaries. I forwarded the photo to my own email with the subject, "First half received." I sat down at my table and opened my binder. I filed the 3x5 instruction card into a clear sleeve on the first page. Above it, I wrote a title in black ink, "I do not move." Then I wrote my sentence for myself, one last time, and only for me. I am finished being easy to move. I closed the binder and set it on the shelf where I keep the repair manuals and the jam recipes. The afternoon light slid across the label on the spine. The house was quiet in the best way, the way that feels earned. The new deadbolt clicked when I turned it, and the basil kept reaching for the window. The door camera thumbnail showed a square of porch and a strip of sky. And that was enough. The next morning began with a knock I didn't order. A woman in a charcoal blazer stood on my porch with a thin leather folio and an expression people use when they've practiced it. The camera caught her before my eyes did. The thumbnail on my phone showed her looking up at the lens, lips pressed small. I opened the inner door and left the storm door latched. "Ms. Ruth?" she said. "I'm Jenna with Neighborhood Family Services. I've been asked to conduct an assessment. Just routine. May I come in for a few questions?" "Who asked you?" I said. She glanced at her folio. "It says family. What name?" I asked. She looked at me the way people look at a locked gate. "I can explain inside. We'll stay on the porch," I said. "Your last name?" She exhaled. "Harper." She held up a plastic badge on a clip. I read it. I read the number under her photo. I read the small print that said EXP 0627. "I decline the assessment," I said. "Please note the date and time. The door camera has your image. I'll share your name with my attorney. If you have questions for me, send them in writing." Her jaw shifted. "We're here to help," she said, not unkindly. "I believe that," I said. "This is how I accept help now." I tapped the camera button and saved the still. The timestamp sat white in the corner, 9:18 a.m. I wrote her name and badge number on a sticky beside the phone, then emailed both to Ms. Ellery with a single line. "Uninvited assessment today. Declined entry. See still." I attached the image. I added my door camera pairing sticker number in the email body for her file. Within an hour, my phone chimed. The subject read, "Uninvited assessment." The body was one sentence. "You handled that correctly. If they return, ask for written authority. Take a photo and refer them to counsel." I printed the email and slid it behind the action memo. At noon, I drove to the branch for the safe deposit box I'd scheduled. The vault hallway had that soft, cooled air again. The attendant logged me in. Safe Dep access, 12:07 p.m. The stamp left a crisp rectangle on the page. I opened the thin drawer and added 2 things I'd carried in a manila envelope: the attorney's letter on safeguards and a small USB stick with scans of every bank receipt from the week. I left a note inside the lid in my own hand. "Originals live here. Copies go home." Back at the table, I made a network card the way a shop makes a price tag. White index, black ink. Network, lavender 217. Password, string. I tucked it into the binder's inside sleeve. "I won't tape it to the router. I'm done helping thieves." The afternoon drifted quiet. I washed the citrus smell from the cutting board. I oiled the new deadbolt with a drop from an old blue bottle. The key turned smoother than yesterday. When I closed the door, the click sounded like it had more finish. At 3, my printer spit out 10 more copies of the 15-minute account safety checklist. I added a line near the bottom. "Ask your bank to add unusual payee creation alert to your profile." I slipped a rubber band around the stack and set it by the door with a small jar of pens. The senior center was busy at 4. Someone played a piano line in the room down the hall. Careful notes, the way people practice when they're new and brave. I pinned a fresh page of paper to the corkboard and drew 3 boxes as I spoke. "First," I said, "open your app and look for a list of saved payees." Plastic chairs creaked. "Second, Ask your bank to put a note on your profile that says, "Speak to client only." Third, print a one-page card with the steps you want followed when you go into the branch. Hand it over. Keep one for yourself. A man with a cap that had a fishing lure on it raised his hand halfway. "What if it's my daughter?" he asked. His voice was mild, not angry. "I don't want to make her feel like a thief." "Don't call her a thief," I said. "Call the bank and ask for the note. Then tell your daughter you're doing it for yourself. You're not accusing. You're building a fence." He nodded, slow. He folded the checklist into his pocket like a letter he meant to carry. "My son emailed at dusk. Subject, half returned." The body was 6 lines. He had sent $1,500 back and included a screenshot with the confirmation code masked. He said he had booked a quote for a bathroom fixture that wasn't silly. He said he wanted to make me dinner on Sunday, just pasta in a pan, nothing big. He didn't ask for a key. I wrote back 2 lines. "Thank you for the return. Sunday is fine. Bring paper." I attached the terms going forward, 1-pager again, so it would be fresh in his inbox and not a test of his memory. Evenings have a way of telling the truth. Mine told me I was tired. I sat in the chair by the window that no one ever notices when they visit. I filed the locksmith invoice under home, hardware. I slid the old locks bag to the back of the closet where the winter boots wait. I put the router's factory sticker into a tiny envelope and wrote the date I set the new password on the front. Small things, simple order. 2 weeks later, the calendar square I'd accepted from Luis lit up my phone. Account review, 11:40. I walked into the branch and Ria waved like a person who remembers the right kind of trouble. Luis met me with the same neat yellow folder and a new line on his screen. "I added the unusual payee creation alert we tested," he said. "I also toggled high-risk device change alert. That means if someone adds a new phone to your login, we pause and call you." He printed the audit trail. The top lines read, "Outbound external freeze placed CRM note. Speak to client only external beneficiary removed. Mara L. Account migrated. New last 4. 9926 fraud abuse case NLAB 22118. Open alert. Unusual payee creation. Enabled alert. High-risk device change. Enabled, he slid me a small form called Client Review Acknowledgement. I signed with my pen, and he stamped my copy. The stamp made that soft rubber sound I'd come to like. We scheduled a 90-day check-in, and he sent the invite while we were still talking. I thanked him and meant it. On Sunday, my son showed up with a paper bag and a new quiet. He held up a box of dry pasta like proof of life. He set down a bundle of parsley with a rubber band around the stems and a wedge of hard cheese wrapped in paper. He washed his hands without me asking. He put a pot on the stove and salted the water like he'd watched someone do it. We ate at the table with no talk about money. After we set our forks down, he pulled a folded 1-page plan from his jacket. He had written in block letters and underlined nothing. Bathroom, the top said. 2 quotes side by side. Shipping times. Return policies. Labor with names. A refund window circled in pencil. He had taped a copy of the safer tub specs to the back and mirrored the shape with his hand when he described it. "You would sit here and stand here," he said, showing me where weight would go. "We'll bring this to the branch," I said. He nodded. "I already asked for a hold quote in writing. No deposits on household. We'll name the thing." He smiled, but he kept his eyes respectful. "I'm learning." "You are," I said. We cleared the plates. He handed me the cheese to wrap, and I handed him the pot to wash. The kitchen felt like old times without the old mistakes. Days found their rhythm. The door camera sent small clips that I deleted after watching the mail carrier's elbow and the neighbor's dog sniff the step. The router never blinked the way it used to when someone tried something it shouldn't. The new deadbolt took the key like it recognized me. The letter from TransUnion came on heavy paper, a formal echo of the email I'd already printed. I filed the page. The reference number sat neat in the corner. It meant that if anyone, not my son, not his wife, not a stranger, tried to open a line of credit in my name, someone would pause and look for me. There was a day when Mara left a box on my porch. The camera caught her stepping back after the knock like a child who isn't sure she wants the door to open. The box held bath catalogs and a short note without a signature. "If you want, pick one." We'll do what you pick. I set the catalogs on the hall table without opening them. I slid the note into family, boundaries. I replied to my son with one sentence. I'll consider one of these after we meet at the branch. He wrote back, understood. At the end of the month, my bank app balance showed no surprises. The top line looked like a shelf that held. I kept 2 appointments that weren't in any file. The first was with myself, at the kitchen table, where I opened my binder and moved the 3x5 instruction card from the back sleeve to the very front into its own clear pocket. I added one handwritten line under the printed steps. If I feel rushed, I pause. The second was with my house. I tightened one more loose hinge, wiped the fingerprints from the acrylic shield of the frame that holds my daughter's school photo, and watered the basil. It smelled green and clean. On a Wednesday, the senior center director asked if I'd help her draft a 1-page account safety template they could hand out every month. We sat at a folding table. The dry erase marker squeaked. We wrote headings, app check, banknote, instruction card. We added a little box at the bottom for write your own rule here. She printed 50 and hung the first on the corkboard with 2 thumbtacks that didn't match. I liked that they didn't match. It made the page look like it had a life. 90 days later, I went back to see Luis. We did the same dance, slower this time. He pulled up the alerts log. There were 2 lines, one test he'd run, one attempted device change at 2:03 a.m., attached to a location I didn't recognize. The system had blocked it and sent the alert to him and to me. I'd been asleep. He had canceled it before the second ping. Our fence worked, he said, tapping the line. He printed that from my file and added a note to call me if anything like it popped up again. Thank you, I said. Thank you, he said back. On my way out, I stopped by the safe deposit hallway and signed the access book to swap the USB stick with a newer one. Safe Dep Access, 10:51 a.m. The sound of the stamp was the same soft authority. The attendant smiled like people do when they see a habit they trust. When I got home, I opened my binder and added a new first page in front of the 3x5 card. I wrote the title in block letters with my thin black pen. I do not move. Under it, a date. Under that, one sentence for me alone about how to live in my own house with my own money and my own peace. I slid the binder onto the shelf. The spine label faced out. The plant on the sill leaned toward the winter light. Somewhere in the house, a hinge I had tightened weeks ago closed with a soft, tidy sound. I turned the deadbolt and heard the click from inside the door and inside my chest at the same time. Then I set the pen down and the room stayed still.